attention to an event that's coming up October the 1st. It's called the Cactus Jack Camp. And for $5 you get a barbecue sandwich and a lot of family fun and so on. It goes from 4 to 6 p.m. I don't know if you ever heard Commissioner Cagle introduce a candidate, but I've heard it a number of times. Recently he introduced Mano de Ayala. He always used word pictures in introductions. For instance, in Mano's case, he picked mano a mano. Mano a mano in Spanish means hand to hand, and it is a great show of respect. And he also picked manual labor. There's no one I know better prepared to be a state rep or that works harder than Mano does. So, help me welcome Commissioner Jack Cagle.
Do I need the microphone?
No.
My years in your service as a judge has taught me to speak to the juror at the back of the room. I want to thank you for allowing me to come, and how much time do I have tonight?
15 minutes.
15 minutes.
The timer is sitting in the front row.
The timer's in the front row. Give me a 5-minute warning. So in 15 minutes, I'm to boil down 15 hours worth of insanity that you find in Commissioner's Court downtown. And a number of you, I want to thank you because you have come down and endured those marathon sessions to see where when words like transparency and openness are used, the opposite is actually what's occurring. The most recent classic example of that is this last Tuesday. Some of you may be aware that there is a movement to increase your taxes from last year to this next year, an increase of $250 million. Now, we're told that that's not very much of your money to take from you. To me, $250 million of taxpayer dollars is a lot. That's not even monopoly money. That's like way out there in terms of expenses to the public. But we were told that the reason why your government, your county government, needed to take the additional $250 million from you is because inflation has been bad, the economy has been tough coming through the pandemic, there's some expenses that the government has, and we've expanded, and we need more of your money. Because you guys apparently have not been going through the pandemic or inflation or higher costs.
Right.
It's all about the tax spenders and not about the tax payers. And one of the things that I've had a privilege of doing is to try to remember day in and day out, and occasionally I get caught up on, we ought to do this thing, and I've been married to the same woman for 41 years. And those of you who have been married to a lady for 41 years, there's this candor that sometimes can come across in a relationship like that. And so if ever I have a moment where I almost forget the perspective of the taxpayers, she reminds us that we are taxpayers too, and we have our own bills to pay in the household. Taxpayers, not tax spenders. Here's another upside down of what we've experienced. Because Tom Ramsey and I did not show up at Commissioner's Court, they said that we weren't working that day. And in fact, they said that we should come to work, which is at Commissioner's Court, where you only come every 2 weeks. Apparently that's the only time that they work. And vote against the tax increase, but tell everybody that because we voted against it, that was all right, and then they could cram the tax increase on top of the public. And they said this publicly. And I'm sitting there thinking, they're telling Tom and I to come and lie to you. When we have the power to stop a record tax increase. And they said, well, just come down here, we'll pass it, and you can tell your people that you are against it because you can vote against it, and we'll just impose it. They were encouraging Tom and I to lie. And that tells you a lot about the status of your county government. We are so blessed to have Cindy Siegel. Would you stand for just a minute? Can we have a round of applause? She and a couple of you others, thank you all very much, has actually come down to Commissioner's Court. And she was treated with such respect and kindness and courtesy. Buffy's experienced that. A few of you others have experienced that sweetness that you have received when you come down to express your views as a citizen. Some of you, when you came down, you were put at the very, 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 very end of all of their speeches. You see, we have this thing that's supposed to be called public comment, but I tend to sometimes think that it's more like government comment than public comment. And that's not right. Let's just get down to serving the people. So this record tax increase, they say, because Tom and I didn't come and vote against it, but so that it could be passed, lie to you, that there has to be these serious, terrible cuts, horrible cuts, that we won't be able to get colonoscopies in the county anymore. West Nile virus is going to come back and strike us all dead. And Commissioner Ellis actually released a thing saying that millions could die.
Wow.
There's 4.7 million in Harris County. We just came out of this terrible thing called the pandemic, and if millions are going to die, let's just count us off on how many of us are going to die because your taxes weren't at this new rate. By the way, the rate that was established is called this thing called a no new revenue. Now this is a real complicated term. I need to break it down for you. No new revenue. Revenue is your money. And new would be more. No means not more. But to them, this is a cut, and the world is going to come to an end. And that's why all of this stuff is there. And actually, in addition to not being no new revenue, three very complicated words, we, the majority, your government, gets to keep all of the new growth funds. Truth in Taxation says that our budget next year with the no new revenue rate will be $66 million more dollars. Your dollars. Because it's new development, new growth, new houses that have been built. Senator Betancourt puts the pencil, being a CPA, and he says it's closer to 72 million. Whether it's 66 million additional dollars or 72 million additional dollars going on top of the no new revenue, how does more money end up being a cut? But government has grown so much in the last 4 years. It's gotten out of control. We have all these new agencies and entities, and we have a bureaucracy on the top of it, and the bureaucracy on top of the bureaucracies in itself costs between 8 and 14 million. And it gets very, very hard to sustain the kids who've gone wild with the credit card. Now, in your households, many of you are teenagers yourselves, but if you had a teenager that took the credit card and maxed it out, you gave them the credit card and said, okay, son or daughter, you got a prom, and I'm going to give you the credit card. You can spend, $200 to get ready for the prom, and they go and they max it out on candy and movies, and then they come back to you and they say the credit card is maxed out, and I don't have money to go to the prom. Mom and Dad, give me more money. This happened with my first child. It didn't happen with my next two childs. I said, well, how can I help you get a job? You have proven that you can't handle the budget. How can I help you? Get a job. You don't reward people not keeping your budgets and blowing your cash. Here's another thing that's real interesting. The whole process here is one that if they had voted or wanted to ask you for a raise for the government, because they're having a hard time making their budgets with inflation and other things. And they just want to take it from you because you've not experienced the same things that the government has. We could have put it on the ballot and let you decide. But we don't want to do that, the majority says. Well, why not? Well, the people won't approve it. What a concept.
Yeah.
What a concept. The whole increase is the amount of money that the majority wants to take from you without your consent. The no new revenue says we're going to take the same this year as we did last year unless they come back to you and say, here's an amount, and we think this is what we're doing. Do you think this is good? And you know, there's times when we do that. There are bonds. Sometimes bonds are really good. The flood bond is an example. We came to the public, we had 181 projects. This is what we're going to build. We had 23 watershed meetings. This is, you the public, what's your input? What can we do? And it passed by record numbers because folks said, okay, this is what I'm going to get, and this is what it's going to cost. You voted for it because you saw what you were going to get, you saw what it was going to cost, and you said, okay, I'll pay for that new car. You had a say in it. We have a new bond, though, that they proposed. It's very, very different from the flood control bond. First of all, do you know what projects are going to be in it?
No.
Neither do I. And I'm one of the county commissioners. Do we know where it's going to be spent?
No.
We don't. We do know that it won't be 25% to each precinct.
Right.
It's going to be allocated away from precincts 3 and 4 to go to the more worthy precincts of 1 and 2, where the majority just happen to be. And the projects that might end up in precincts 3 and 4, well, we just can't let it go anywhere. It'll have to be something that's approved of based upon the guidelines of precincts 1 and 2. So you're asked to vote for a project that you don't even know how much your precinct's going to get, and with regard to the projects, you don't know what it's going to be spent on. But you do know this one thing. With the flood control projects, we spent $250 million doing the 23 watershed meetings with the list of what was going to happen. But on this $1.2 billion bond, we're going to spend $1 million of your taxpayer funds to make sure that we educate people in select neighborhoods.
Oh.
Sounds like Elevate Strategies in a way to me. Let's see how we can transfer money to help an outcome in an election in November.
Corruption.
Really, the bond isn't the issue. It's money to try to take away from you. So, no new revenue means
Not more.
not more. It's not a cut. Here's another thing. I'm almost out of my time. I got one more minute?
We got 3.
3 minutes. Okay. Crime.
Yeah.
Crime. Do you feel safer now than you did 4 years ago?
No.
They will say that they have spent more on crime fighting and public safety than any commissioner's court ever in the history of mankind. And when you do their funny math, the numbers do add up to be a substantial amount. 48 million of that is for early childhood education for 1,000 kids. Let me say that again. Some of you are math folks and you're trying to figure that out. 48 million for 1,000 kids in select neighborhoods. I always love that phrase, select neighborhoods. That's $48,000 a child. Wow. That's what some people make in a year. But we're going to spend $48,000 for a child for free, or it's free daycare. Early childhood education is the euphemism for free daycare. And we have this thing, it's called 22 school districts. Do any of you pay school district taxes? Okay, but we're going to take money from you as a taxpayer in the county to add to that because every child deserves free daycare.
No, 1,000.
But that's law enforcement. Why? Because if we're going to educate them when they're early, take them away from their parents, then they'll grow up and they won't commit crimes when they're a teenager. It's like the Lena Youth, I guess. And so that's not law enforcement. Another example of law enforcement. A good program, planting trees. You know, one of the legitimate functions of the county is parks. We're supposed to keep the bathrooms in your parks clean and have good public spaces for you to go to. Parks are good, legitimate. But when you take a parks program and you rename it and you call it crime prevention through environmental design. Let me say that again because it really does sound impressive. Crime prevention through environmental design.
That's creative.
Now that becomes, the plain name of the tree becomes a law enforcement tool. Now, you ladies could perhaps hide behind one of the new trees that we plant when the criminals come by, but I'm 6'4". I can't hide behind one of those trees. It's not going to prevent me from getting robbed. And they put that into the law enforcement category. Meanwhile, you got to ask yourself, boots on the ground. The county has grown. Have we added the number of boots on the ground? The answer is no. They've added some fancy programs. They've added some overtime for our overworked cops who are already working overtime. Oh, we'll let you do overtime, but we won't allow you to add new cops because cops are bad. We don't pay our cops adequately, so we're losing the ones we have to other counties. And they say, well, we can't fill the positions. Duh. If you underpay our cops, they're going to go somewhere else, and you can't fulfill them. This is all backwards and wrong. I will wrap up, but may I have the indulgence of introducing somebody?
Yeah.
Christine, would you stand? This lady here is the Team Kegel Grandma. Can you have a round of applause for her? When you leave here today, you need to take a Jack Kegel sign, you need to take a Chris Daniels sign, you need to take the signs that our judicial candidates are going to be handing out here. We need silver. We need for you to take signs because those are endorsements. You need to give us sign locations to where you know where we can put a 4x8. And we need shoe leather. And I won't count this as my time on the shoe leather because this is something that you all can do. There's a stat that's from Royal Masood way back in the day who said that if you have a poll worker standing in front of a poll, 1 out of 6 people who are undecided will vote for that candidate just because someone was willing to stand out there and wear their t-shirt or hold their sign. You don't have to talk to them. And if you're good at talking, you can make that number higher. But 1 out of 6, think about that for a minute. When Jack Mormon lost by 1,400 votes, with the hundreds of thousands of people that voted, if you could have gotten 1 out of 6 to have voted for him because someone stood out there and held a sign, Johnny's going to have a tight race. He's going to have a tight race. She's well funded, and that district is a fun district. 1 out of 6 for Johnny. 1 out of 6 for Chris. 1 out of 6 for me. The Team Kegel Grandma here, she will help you get your signs. She will help you find the places to work because we're going to put people at polling locations, and she will also take your checks. Thank you all very much. And I've been Nancy Scott's stalker for a while because I think I've seen her. I'm doing 2 breakfasts, 2 lunches, and 3 dinners, but I think I've seen you at least every day.
Let's get Jack another bait. And so, our next candidate.
Talk about timing.
The 3 words say accountability, transparency, and integrity. That's what Kyle Scott is all about. And let's bring him up with a big hand.
So there's one thing that qualifies me for this position. Attention to detail. If you want to email me. So I'll share a story with you guys. I'm walking in a little bit scattered. There was an event over at Binglewood outside, Meet the Candidates thing, their civic association. It was a great event. So my first university teaching job was at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio. So Miami, not in Florida, Oxford, not in England. I taught con law, and I was the pre-law advisor there. And so Sandra Day O'Connor came to visit. And they were like, would you like to take her class? I said, absolutely. This will be a great opportunity for the students. So we get in there, And the last thing she said was, I always carry around a copy of my pocket constitution. And she pulled it out and showed it to us. And then she put it back. And Eric Bates, he had me for 2 semesters. He stood up and he said, our con law professor will not stop asking us to define liberty. Can you please define it for us? And she said, well, sir, my job is to interpret the Constitution, and because the word liberty does not appear, I do not have to define it. To which I stood up and I said, Justice O'Connor, the word liberty is the 35th word in the preamble. Do you read that thing, or you just carry it around? At which point I was escorted by security. Here. This is good. All right. So the point of that story is simply because in this position, to be the taxpayer watchdog, it requires somebody with the resolve to speak truth to power. So there is no control over the budget within the county treasurer's office. Oh, by the way, Kyle Scott running for Harris County Treasurer. It's Commissioner's Court who decides where the money goes. But it's the treasurer who is the eyes and the ears of the taxpayer. Every dollar that flows in and every dollar that flows out of the county has to pass through the treasurer's office. So there's only one entity within the county government that's either A, doesn't have the authority to grant contracts, and B, isn't employed by majority on Commissioner's Court, and that's the treasurer's office. Everyone else who deals with the budget has their check signed by or has something to gain by issuing money to other areas. So I have one constituency, and that's the taxpayers. And right now, we're living within a county that has too much money going to the wrong places and not enough of it going to the right places. And so what I mean by this is the Harris County government has $802,000 now sitting in unclaimed funds with the Texas State Comptroller. Nobody's bothered to ask for it back. We overpaid on a contract this year with Baker Ripley $1 million. Last year, we paid on a canceled contract $1.4 million. You guys might have heard of Elevated Strategies. Yeah. And right now, we live in a county where the potholes get deeper, the crime goes up, and nobody's picking up the trash out of the parks. And I contend that the government forgets that there are real people behind those numbers. There are real people who drive on those roads, who have to deal with the crime, and who have to play and live next to those parks. It's going to take somebody in this position to serve as a fiduciary for the taxpayers who knows what it's like to be on the outside looking in. To not have the number of somebody on the inside and saying, hey, can you get this done for me? Is that my time?
No.
I can quit now. Vote down the ballot. Kyle Scott. And I contend that coming from a small business background, coming from somebody who's been able to refine their finance and accounting skills by earning an MBA and by engaging in M&A transactions for small cap companies, that looking at these budgets and going through the numbers and caring about where the money's going is going to be a unique opportunity. When I was on the board of trustees at Lone Star College, it's from 2013 to 2018. I feel like Mr. Rogers with Story Hour here. So I was elected running in opposition to the bond. We defeated the bond. By the way, don't vote for the $1.2 billion bond this year. And so when I got there, ahead of our first budget meeting, I said, all right, well, give me the prep materials for this year's budget. Meanwhile, we had a $500 million budget. They sent me 4 PowerPoint slides. And I said, well, this really isn't a budget. What do you have? Well, this is what we always do. And if you guys are in business or in government or anywhere else, you know the worst answer is, well, this is just the way we've always done it. Yes. So I said, well, you're going to have to send me the full thing because I want to be prepared. And they said, we don't have an electronic version to send to you. And I said, well, that seems weird because there's like 12 people on the executive staff, but go ahead and send me what you have. So they sent me 300 unnumbered, unordered, printed out Excel spreadsheets. Okay, game on. So within the first 6 months, we were able to pull out enough waste and corruption that I could get 4 more votes with me on the board to get rid of the chancellor, the CFO, and the general counsel.
Wow.
And the point is this: it is our money.
Yes.
And the government often forgets. And they just think, oh, well, we have to spend this money this year, so let's just replace the AC again, even though it hasn't reached its life expectancy. Oh, we'll just hire another person. Just hire another consulting firm. We just have to get rid of this cash. This is our money. The objective should be twofold. One, take care of the business that you should be taking care of. Crime and public safety. Two, if you have some left over, give it back. Lower the taxes. We have two issues, and I want everybody to remember this. The two biggest issues this county deals with on a practical basis and now on a political basis. Public safety and infrastructure. Talking about anything else is a distraction, and that's how we're going to win the votes. That's how we're going to win the independents and the softies. But we can't get those issues right until we get the money right. And listen, I'm not an engineer. I can't build you a bridge or dig you a ditch. I'm not a law enforcement or an attorney. But I can count to 20 without taking my shoes and socks off, so I'd really like to do that. Thank you guys very much.
Folks, we appreciate you bearing with us. Trinity Mendenhall has changed their policy, and so we have to be out of this room at a certain time. We have to finish up about 8:30, and so we're just unable to allow a lot of questions for the speakers. But if you write them down, we'll make sure that they get them, and you can take care of them. This lady has run a small business, a successful small business for many, many years. She knows what she's doing in the tax accounting business. This lady has been involved with a number of the clubs around town. She's been vice president and treasurer of Harris County Republican Party, so she knows all the inner workings of this organization. She has built a team. First time we've had a responsible executive director. First time we've had a lot of things that we've never had before.
Yes.
Plus, one of the first times we've had a bottom line that's black instead of red. And so, with all of that experience behind her, in addition to running as a candidate for CD7, there's one thing that I want you to remember, and that's the bottom line. This lady is a fighter. She has been fighting for you and I, and for the party. She goes against terrible odds all the time with the Democrats, and she succeeds. So, help me welcome Cindy Bailey.
Well, I'll try to talk loud. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm not gonna stand in front of that. And I have to say, you know, I'm glad I'm not coming after Johnny T. When we were on the campaign trail a few years ago, I would inevitably be after Johnny, and I mean, he's such a great speaker. But I can also say Jack, Cagle, Kyle, they're great speakers. So I'm not going to do any dance. I'm not going to do this stuff that Jeff does. You know, I'm just going to talk about the practical things and what we're doing and how you all can help the party, where we're at what is it, September 22nd. The clock's ticking. I feel it every day, like I'm sure you all do. And some of you had listened to the weekly fire last week. No, I guess it was this week. The days just go by. But I'm going to cover some of the same things. Hopefully we'll have a little bit of time. You'll keep me on target for a few questions. If not, you can send Gail or you can send to me, and we'll do like a Q&A. Where we're at, you remember we did a poll back in June. I reported at that at the executive committee meeting. At that time, we put our questions together before May 24th. So we didn't know who was at the top of the ticket in terms of county judge. But the question was, how many of you, and it was about 900 people with a 3.5% error rate, which is pretty good, less than 4%. And we said, how many of you would vote Democrats, Republicans, Independents for Lena Hidalgo? At that time, they said 35.5%. So then we said, how many of you would vote for a change in Harris County leadership? And it was 49.5%. Shortly after that, Hobby School, U of H, Public Policy, that's when they did a poll. They showed Lena and Alexandra neck and neck. They have subsequently done a poll where, you know, the Chronicle splashed it all over and said, oh, Alexandra's way behind, but if you dig into it, their error rate is like 7%, 7 points, and then I heard that they only talked to like 130 people, 127 people. So big difference. You can't always judge the poll. The other thing we wanted to do is we looked at Jack Mormon. We looked at Adrian Garcia. We also looked at Jack Cagle. And we knew between unfavorables for Adrian Garcia and the people who didn't know, if we do our job, we have a good chance of taking precinct 2. We looked at Jack Cagle. His hardest thing was that people didn't know him because of the switcheroo. And I have to say, Gail, I get depressed every time I see the map. I live in Bel Air, and they did the perfect trifecta. The worst is I don't have Joan Huffman anymore. I have John Whitmire. I still have Lizzie Fletcher until November 8th when I can have Johnny T. And then with the switcheroo, they said, we're gonna give Bel Air to Rodney Ellis. And I'm just and Bel Air floods, I can guarantee, when we go to call and 80% of our homes have water in them during a hurricane like Harvey, I am sure Rodney Ellis is gonna say, Bel Air who? But anyway, okay, so back on the poll, it was great news. The top issue was crime. Number 2 was inflation. Number 3 was gas prices. Number 4 was school choice, CRT. And number 5 was flooding. We have a major hurricane, you're gonna see flooding go to the top.
Yep.
So that's where we're at. So we've been doing since August 1st, we made a significant investment, and our goal is we've gotta turn out, we've gotta bring independence over. 2020, even though we know that there was fraud, we don't know how much. So Biden brought in 900,000 plus approximately votes. Trump had over 700,000. Typically, when you look at 18, 16, the Republican base has been about 500,000. So we gained between 18 to 2020, we gained 200,000 votes. So we need to bring in independents, and we need to turn out our normal 500,000 base, and we need to bring those additional 200,000 people that saw the light and voted for President Trump. So we're going after independent voters, and we've got a door hanger on one side. It says Alexandra Mueller, vote for her, and either Jack Cagle or Jack Mormon. You flip it over, and it says vote for our judges and vote all the way down the ballot. These paid block walkers are hitting approximately 6,500 homes in precinct 2 and 4. The goal is 100,000 doors. And when we get people who actually answer the door, and I'm the first to say I don't answer the door, but when they answer the door, and we're engaging about 26, 27% of the doors being knocked, we are like a 5 to 1, 6 to 1 favorables, particularly with independents. We've identified those doors are independents, what I call Republican light. They voted 1 or 2 Republican precincts, and Democrat lights, the same thing. And that is the first part. Number 2 is that we've got to get the base. We've got to bring out that 700,000 plus people. We're gonna do that with texting. You get a much higher open rate when you text, let's face it, we all look at our text. We can do a link to a landing page, and to say, get out and vote. Third is you've gotta vote all the way down the ballot. So we're relying upon our strongholds, we're relying upon a Wesley Hunt, Paul Betancourt, Briscoe Kane, all the people that we know, that will and should and will win. They've got to turn out their base, and they've got the messages vote all the way down the ballot. Don't stop at the top. You've got to stand there, and you've got to put in the time and vote all the way down the ballot. The county judge is after the district court judges. Our commissioners, Jack Cagle and hopefully Jack Mormon, they're after that. Chris, Kyle, you guys are after our county commissioners, and I think the bottom are the probate, not probate, justice of the peace. So turn out the vote, tell them to vote all the way down, and we're doing that with your help, knocking on doors. We're doing a lot of volunteer block box. I think we have 5 or 6 that we've scheduled with candidates, etc. Then we've got Kingwood is knocking it out. Katie, you guys are working on it. Baytown every weekend's working on it. Down in like the Clear Lake area, they're all out there. We can do this, but it is going to be a fight to the bitter end. We're going to win vote by vote, and we don't want to be there November 9th saying, if I just knocked on 50 more doors, or if I just invited a few more friends. We've got to drag people kicking and screaming if we have to, and they need to do what it takes to get our judges, take back the commissioner's court, get Kyle elected, get Chris elected, get Stan Stannard elected. We've got to, this is it. It's time to take back Harris County, because if we don't, it may not be in 2024, it'll probably be in 2026. We will not only have lost Harris County, we will end up, just strictly because of our size, be the reason that Texas would go blue and that the country would go blue. So it's on us. We need your help. I appreciate everything you guys do. Everyone needs to take, there are signs out there for your tired crime, and I'm also going to model. I was gonna double up, but then I was afraid I'd pull one off and. So we've got, I know, I'm short on time. We've got, for our judges, we've got a few, if you want, we're asking you to make a donation. It goes to the Joint Judicial Campaign, which is a separate bank account. So we've got this, and then we've got this one, which is Houston. We have the crime problem. The solution is simple: vote Republican all the way down. Last item, fundraising is going well. We're working hard. We had an event Monday, raise money for the party to help with all the block walking and everything. We had a joint judicial fundraiser last night, raised around $100,000. October 3rd, executive committee meeting. October 4th is the Michael Berry one. We are almost sold out. If you haven't bought a ticket to that, it gets shut down at noon tomorrow. So you need to, if you want to go to Michael Berry, do that. October 6th, we're bringing in Senator John Kennedy. I love listening to him. We figured we all could use it probably that time, a glass of wine, and have some laughs and say, thank God I'm not in DC, and thank God we're going to send people like Johnny T to DC. Thank you.
So let's keep politics out of religion. What? Our next candidate is none other than Pastor Dr. Johnny T.
And I'm going
at the top of the ticket. How about that? Let me tell you something. Kyle, are you here, Kyle? Ignore this story. You've heard it enough. Last week, I was handing out flyers. I door knock 240 homes every day. I have people, I've got about 180 now putting out my flyers, George and others. And one of my door hanger people stick it on car windshields. I've told our volunteers, don't put it on car windshields. It hacks people off, because they're going to call me. Sure enough, they stuck it on a car windshield. Little old lady called me, said, "Are you Johnny Teague?" I go, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "I'm voting for you because of the front of your flyer. Love God, care for each other, and do right. But now, I want to see if it's just a slogan, or do you mean it?" She said, "Because somebody stuck your flyer on my car windshield and then it rained." She said, "When I pulled it off, the paper stuck to the windshield. I can't get it off. So if you're going to care for people and do right, I expect you at my house this afternoon to wash my car." She was serious. I said, "Man," and I would have done it. For a vote, I would have done it. But I said, "Ma'am, I'm speaking 3 or 4 times this evening. I can't, but let me ask you to do this. Take it to the car wash, give me the bill, I'll gladly pay for it." She said, "You know, that sounds fair." Called me 2 days later and says, "Johnny, this is Miss Luna." She said, "I got my car washed. It looks awesome. It's immaculate. It looks better than it's ever looked." I go, "I'm so glad you got it. I'm so sorry you had to do it. How much do I owe you?" She said, "Well, let me tell you, I actually don't drive anymore." And I'm like, "Well," but she said, "I don't drive anymore, so I couldn't take the car wash, so I called one of those mobile car wash people to come to my house and wash my car." I'm like, "Yikes, those are so expensive." I go, "How much was it?" She goes, $210. $210. Now we're going to pass the offering plate around. And I'm so excited because y'all are going to cover my back. But let me ask you a question. Why was she willing to spend $210 for a car wash?
Because you were going to pay for it.
It was my money,
Yeah.
not hers. Why is the government spending $32 trillion? It's not their money. It's ours. We have got to take our country back. Do you remember where Samuel Adams and the Sons of Liberty met in secret? You know what it was called? The Green Dragon Tavern. Today, you and I are in the Green Dragon Tavern. We are here because we've got to win back our nation. We've got to win back our state. We've got to win back our county. If I were to ask you the question and time limits me, does this mean I got 5 minutes, or does
When
that
I
mean
do
you need
that,
to
means you got
stop?
5 left.
Okay, just to make sure when that sign comes.
I'll do that when it's.
All right, good enough. I was going to ask you, what would you do if you had a plan to destroy the country? What would you do? Someone answer me real quick. What would you do? Give me one hand. What would you do if you were going to destroy
Let the border be open.
Let the border be open. What would you do to destroy the country?
Elect Democrats.
What?
Bad judges.
Bad judges?
Let everybody run wild.
In one truck, bring enough fentanyl to kill every man, woman, and child in the United States.
What would you do to destroy the country?
Spend like a drunken sailor and get the country into debt and make the currency crash.
What would you do?
Everything that's being done right now.
I think you're a good closer. Oh, go ahead, Cindy.
Indoctrinate the kids.
Indoctrinate the kids.
Destroy the family.
Destroy the family.
Have a pandemic.
Have a
Lock
pandemic.
everything down.
I would divide the country up and produce hatred to one party, so to try to entice them to start something.
You just named everything, like our summation back there said. That's what's going on. There's a push to destroy our country. I hate to be Johnny Raincloud today, but that's where we are. So we've got to do something. Now, I believe we're going to get the Republican vote. I really do. I think we're going to come out in droves. We better. But we got to win independents. And we got to win weak Democrats. I was interviewed by David Pac-Man the other day. Never heard of the guy. He's the largest liberal podcaster in the nation. I was on his podcast, 1.5 million people were listening to him. And it was an ambush. I mean, the first question, who's president? Joe Biden. Who should be president? Because I know where you are, you whack. Then he said, you're with QAnon, aren't you? And I mean, it went downhill from there. So I stood up for us with 1.5 million liberals listening. And I was sick when I was done. When I got through, the guy closed me off because I don't agree with anything you've said. He said, and our listeners don't either. And I guarantee you, if I had time, I would rip you apart, but we're out of time. I'm going to wait a minute before you let me go. Let me tell you something. I'm sorry we don't agree. And I'm glad, though, that you share with me what you believe. But just because we disagree, does that not mean we can't be brothers and Americans loving our country? And he said, sure, and ended it. And I thought, boy, I didn't see that coming. Do you know I'm getting emails every day across the country from liberal progressives who said, I'd vote for you. From Virginia, from Pennsylvania, from California. Because if we enunciate what we believe, and we do it in a humble and a kind way, but don't waver, we can win them over. Because even though they vote that way, they know in their heart what's right. Last thing I'm going to tell you. I'm a pastor in a black church, and we grew to 1,000 people before I ran for Congress. Now all of a sudden we're losing, because it's not just an African American church, it's a Democrat church, except for me. And you know, my congregation is switching, they're door knocking for me, they are standing for us. But one of my church members left, and her mom still comes, and the family at their dinner table call me Pastor Trump. There's old Pastor Trump. What did he preach today? Pastor Trump. But you know, that girl who calls me Pastor Trump, her little 2-year-old boy got diagnosed with cancer this week. And I called her and I prayed with her. And I told her, you know, we're here for you. This morning I'm driving to door knock in 77083. And I felt this push. I need to call that woman. I couldn't explain it, but I just felt I must call her now. So while I'm in traffic, I called her and go, hey, Ebony, it's Johnny. Just want to see how you're doing. She goes, it's amazing you call right now because they're taking my baby in for its last scan. And we were hoping somebody would call and pray. And I prayed with her. And I started door knocking. About third hour into my door knock, my phone rings, it's Ebony. She's bawling on the phone. And I expected the worst news ever. I couldn't hardly hear her. She was so inconsolable. But finally, I could make out, she said, I just want to tell you what it meant for me, for you to call, for you to care. And her whole weeping wasn't because she got a bad news report on her child. They still had not heard anything. But that I would care enough, Pastor Trump, to love and to care and to take interest. We can win every election if we just stand on truth, we don't compromise, and we never act like we know it all. We know the truth, though. And so anyway, I'm Johnny Teague, and I'm running to be your congressman. I'm praying for your support. My yard signs are in the truck. I never bring them in. I always feel presumptuous, but if you want one, just let me know, and I'll get you them. I've ran out so many times now. I'm so thankful. Cindy Siegel lets me put them in her garage, but she won't answer the door when I knock. So, don't know what that means. But we are starting to get money. Lizzie Fletcher has $3 million in her account. I got a couple of 20s on me. You know what? I can outwork anybody. And Lizzie and I finally spoke at a forum. I'm watching you, haven't flagged me down. I'll keep going. Spoke at a forum at Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church. First one Lizzie Fletcher's ever shown up for. I knew Kyle would be there. He's everywhere. But Lizzie showed, dog it, you dogged me there. Lizzie spoke about women's rights and about minorities, got a little applause. I told my story about the flyer on the windshield, got the loudest roar you ever heard, and she left right after. We can whoop them. I just need your help. Bless you. Thanks so much.
That's Dr. Johnny Teague, the hardest working politician I know. You've heard him before. He served 2 terms as the district clerk, mechanical engineer with a law degree. He's got a tremendous amount of knowledge and information for us. Please welcome Chris Daniel. Chris Daniel, Commissioner Cagle, and Mike Schofield put together the Katy Republican headquarters. We want to give them a hand for that.
We knew the party needed the money elsewhere, so we had the space donated for free. Cagle covers the air conditioning so that it stays cool in there, and Schofield helps staff it. But do all your block walking you want out of that Katy office. We decided that we needed to inform people that the West Side office is still 30 minutes from Katy. So we created the Katy office to help out all those folks beyond the West Side. I am Chris Daniel. I was your Harris County District Clerk for 8 years. I'd like to be your District Clerk once again. What is the District Clerk? Well, it's not the County Clerk. The County Clerk is responsible for your life records, birth certificate, death certificate, marriage license, property titles, DBAs, and more. Not much with courts. District Clerk, poor name, should have been called Clerk of the Courts. Handles the courts. Most of the judges, all of the jury duty, none of the fun. District Clerk, Harris County, all the courts. Why do you need to bring Chris Daniel back as Harris County District Clerk? Well, as Kyle said and others, crime, 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 crime. What the heck does the clerk have to do with crime? Let me tell you, when the clerk does not do their job, people are either left in jail that are innocent, they're supposed to be out of jail, or what is happening a lot in Houston and Harris County now, people are being let out of jail who should not be let out of jail on technical difficulties or clerical error. Oh, I'm sorry, somebody gets murdered because of clerical error? Where's the outrage? Somebody gets let out and they rob half of Washington Avenue. Where's the outrage? It is wrong, wrong, wrong when the district clerk doesn't do their job. And it's worse when they think they're doing their job and instead causing all of us the heartache. I'll give you a real example. I'm getting cryptic now. What if I told you that there's an entire database of all the felons and criminals in Harris County? And that database is supposed to be shared with the federal government? What if I now told you that the Houston Police Officers Union conducted their own investigation starting in 2020, that there were many felons convicted who should not be able to go to Academy or Walmart, etc., to buy a firearm, who were able to not only buy that firearm, pass a federal background check, but commit subsequent crimes? That is gross negligence. That should be removal from office. That is why it's important to have competent candidates for office. I don't care what party you think you are. If you're going to put up a Libertarian or a Green Party or a Mustard Party, they better know what that job is and how to do it. God help us when we have these sweeps and these waves and these flukes. We get some idiot in there that goes, oh, well, my friend ran for office, so I'm going to run for office too. And they get in there and fire half the staff that know what they're doing because well, so-and-so told me that they're a bad Democrat, or so-and-so told me that they're loyal to Chris Daniel, or so-and-so told me that they're really just a Republican. Who cares? They know how to do the job. They're there to serve. They're there to not waste taxpayer dollars. They're there to get the job done. This is a functional job that has to do with crime and public safety. And when it's not done correctly, we all suffer. I don't care what party you are. It is wrong, and that is why we have to make sure that we not only elect every Republican up and down the ballot, all the judges, all the commissioners, Kyle and others, but especially Chris Daniel for Harris County District Clerk. I beg you, get the word out. It's your safety that's at stake. It's my safety that's at stake. We can have the best or worst judges in the world, but that often overlooked office, the district clerk's office, when it grinds to a halt because someone won't answer the phone, and someone is going to go run to HR because you're being mean to them for demanding them to do their job. When it grinds to a halt, we all suffer. We can have the best judges in the world. We can elect every judge and not the district clerk, and guess what? We'll be back to square one. You know why justice didn't stop during Hurricane Harvey? Because this engineer and lawyer pushed that technology into the courthouse to make the courts electronic. We didn't go down when half of downtown flooded. We were able to proceed and do as we were commanded to do by the Texas Constitution and the statutes because of that technology. That same technology that ironically saved the justice system during COVID. And she still managed to bungle that. Why? Because you fired half the office and more and hired Democrat cronies that don't know what they're doing or refuse to do what they're doing, all in the name of pandering and giving jobs to friends. We know it's wrong. We know it. Get the word out. Our public safety is at stake. District Clerk Chris Daniel, County Clerk Stan Stannard, Treasurer Kyle Scott. Can I get your agreement on that? All right. I know I still have time. Does anybody have any burning questions?
Didn't you have something to do with the elections?
One more time?
Didn't you have something to do with elections?
No, Stan Stannard had elections. The district clerk created the passports office. We were the last office in Texas not to have a passport office, the last county. And so we created the passport office so that we could, A, not have to go to the post office, and B, not have to worry about the city of Houston bungling that too. And so then we had this wonderful service, and the first thing the district clerk did, cancel it on day one. Why? Even though it was costing the office nothing and actually generating the county money, and everybody loved it because we were on time and had lots of capacity to do passports. Because, well, that's what Mr. Daniel did, so I'm not going to do it. Come on. I gave you a Cadillac. Don't drive it off the cliff within the first day.
Who is the district? Who is the
It's Marilyn Burgess. But my name is Chris Daniel. Remember that. But I promise you that, no offense, Cindy, a CPA has nothing to do with handling court records and jury duty and managing attorneys and judges. You need someone who has a legal background. The last 3 district clerks prior to me, including the Democrat that I defeated, were lawyers. Teresa Chang, Lauren Jackson. These names, they did a decent job because they knew where the courthouse was, for starters. Secondly, they knew exactly what was supposed to happen with these documents that are now electronic at the courthouse. It is appropriate to have a CPA run for treasurer or for tax assessor collector. Nice lady. But I promise you that the Democrats will never make that mistake again, and that all the future candidates will be lawyers or someone that worked at the courthouse. Make sure you elect candidates with a proper background. I beg you. But at the end of the day, this election is where it matters for your public safety. www.chrisdaniel.org, www.chrisdaniel.org, @Daniel 4 for Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. It's all there. We have signs, we have t-shirts. Come see me. We could beg you for your help. Talk to your lawyer friends. They will tell you. The Democrat lawyers will really tell you, oh my God, we need Chris Daniel back. I wasn't going to run. And then my phone was blowing up every day, starting at month number 3, that you need to come back. My opponent is the only candidate on the ballot that has an entire Facebook page dedicated to her removal from office. That's called HCDC, Harris County District Clerk. HCDC, we're not going to take it anymore. And it has the Simpsons characters with pitchforks and torches. They really want her gone. And the Democrat judges are quietly going, we hope you win. Why? Because even the Democrats that were in office when I was in office knew that it was a much better job. And they didn't know what they had until it was gone. Enough about my praises, enough about myself. You have your marching orders. Tell your friends, public safety is on the ballot. We have to vote all the way down, and we have to vote for Chris Daniel, Harris County District Clerk.
So in the business world, I'm known as the connector. I like to teach people how to build connections and get more referrals, generate more business. And we translate that to working with voters, candidates, and so forth. But in the interest of time, I'm going to save that for the next session. I was at a advisory board meeting, and one of the SD chairs told me, I want to talk to you afterwards. And afterwards, the SD chair said, several of the people from ISD were at one of your meetings. They want to know why we're not doing what SD 17's doing. So, I want to talk a little bit about what SD 17 is doing. These are the people that make up the executive committee. There's 4 officers. James Clayton is vice chair. Lauren Heese is our secretary, and Felicia Cravens. Even though she's a parliamentarian for HCRP, she agreed to be parliamentarian for us. And then we have region coordinators, and you see a duplication. The vice president is also a region coordinator. Well, you know what most vice presidents do. They wait around for the president to get sick or be disabled before they can do something. Well, that's not the case here. And James jumped in, and he's Region 1 coordinator. Derek Hudson. There's a number of years between Derek and most of the people that are out here working. Young man, but he's off and running. Jeb Strickland. He's already on the advisory board, and he's been the precinct chairman for a number of years. Well qualified. Buffy Ingersoll. We've already replaced 3 regional directors, regional coordinators. Not because anything wrong with them, it's just that they were overloaded, like many people. Too much work to do, they couldn't handle what we needed done. So Buffy replaced one of those individuals. Mills Worsham and, Bill was here a little bit earlier, Bill Frazier. So that's the team. Now, we're divided into those 7 regions, and every week, those region coordinators meet with their teams. They've been out block walking and so forth. And they report the statistics. And we give them that feedback so that they know by precinct how many block walking houses were hit. Accountability. Every month we have a session like you're seeing here today. We also have 10 committees that are doing an outstanding job taking care of other aspects of the business. We have 5 of the SD 17 members that serve on the advisory board, and 13 that serve on HCRP committees from SD 17. You always plug the next event. Our next event is going to be October the 20th for the SD 17. And we're going to have the gentleman you've heard a lot about tonight, Mono de Ayala. Also, we're gonna have Lily Trump, 149, I know that one well because I used to live in there, and Nancy Scott is in 149. Dr. Johnny Teague, we'll get to see Johnny Teague again with another great message. Mark Bulloway, he's gonna have some tax information for us, and we're gonna be at Dr. Johnny Teague's church, the church at the cross. Every month we have a member of the HCRP staff here. This month it's Cindy Siegel, the chair. SD17 is all about a culture, commitment, transparency, accountability, and service, making our plans effective. So, this is a map of SD17. You can see the 7 regions that it's divided into. It goes from Waller County down to the Galleria. These are the individuals that are on the committees that we have. These are the individuals that are appointed to HCRP committees. And here are some of the priorities. Of course, number 1 is doing all the way down that ballot. We want to fill open precincts. We've just filled 1. We've got 2 more that are going to the vacancy committee to get approved. So we'll have 3 that we knocked out. We want to conduct these SD-wide in different regions, and we've been moving them around. That's why it's here. Promote our phone and email mass texting in addition to the block walking. Attract volunteers from diverse groups. We've got an engagement committee that's helping with that. Focus on building relationships and then leadership by service. So win back Harris County is what we want to do. Now, every once in a while you run across someone that just steps up. They don't have to be asked, they just are there. James Clayton is one of those individuals. He has taken on the job of working with all of our regional coordinators. He has taken on the job of helping candidates like Alex to a very, very large extent. And I want you to hear how he developed what we're using in SD17. James Clayton.
Okay. So I'm not a candidate. So this is the boots on the ground portion of the night. And so Gail asked me to talk a little bit. Some of this I've talked about a few meetings back, so I added a little bit of flavor to it. So it's not going to be the exact presentation I gave a little while back. So there's some little wrinkles in it just to make it not a duplication. But a lot of it is talking a little bit about, you know, where I came from and why I do the things I do and how I've accomplished what I've accomplished or tried to accomplish. So, you know, I was busy raising kids a long time, very conservative all along the way, and doing my job. But I really only got involved with the politics stuff like back in 2020. So met my precinct chair, just looked him up on the internet, found him, and he introduced me to Mike Schofield, did a little block walking, way outside my comfort zone. And so that precinct chair, he was moving, he said, hey, do you want to be the AJ? I said, sure. Next thing you know, he's like, hey, you want to be the judge, or you want to be the precinct chair? I'm leaving. So just like that, I went and interviewed and got the job. So I didn't know, I didn't know much about being a precinct chair. I was just kind of learning, and I didn't know any voters in my precinct. I didn't know any of the other precinct chairs. I had no contact list. I was kind of out there on my own. But I had a mission, what I wanted, which was do 2 things. One was connect people informationally, right? So I wanted to start collecting emails, right? Get everybody talking to each other. And the other one was relationally. To me, one of the big problems we have is just, everybody getting to know each other. And I think that's a really big deal because, there's a dynamic that's created when we all get to know each other and become friends. But real quick, this is kind of the wrinkle. I'm going to tell a little baseball story. I took him out to the ball field, got him signed up with the coach. This is T-ball. I volunteered to be the assistant coach, all well and good. And I know sports, but I never coached. So one day, the coach said, hey, I gotta leave early. Will you take the equipment back and I'll meet you, tomorrow? He never came back. Guess who became the coach? Just like that. So that was the beginning of my coaching career, T-ball. And, I kind of figured it out, and I started to like it. I was doing it from a kid. So I stuck with it. We were playing league ball. I was doing pretty good. So a few years later, we get into kid pitch. If you know anything about baseball, when the kids start throwing the ball, when you're actually pitching the ball, that's when it gets a little tough. Early on, I was learning how to draft kids and all that. You go through the draft. My star pitcher blew his arm out one season. First season we were doing kids pitch. We didn't win a game the entire season. We were competitive all year long. We never won a game. But the thing that I learned is, I learned how to be a little bit better coach. I learned how to just work with the kids that I have, work with the team that I have, and I didn't quit. Fast forward, 19 years later, I'm coaching my youngest son now. We're doing tournament ball, travel ball. So we're playing we're playing in a tournament. It's my last game that I'm ever gonna coach. We're in a tournament. There's really good teams in it. We make it to the championship. We're losing, and this is where it's fall ball. It's cold. It's like in the 30s, but these baseball people, we're nuts. And we're last inning. We're losing by 2 runs. We played 3 runs. We win the championship. That was the end of my career, just like that. So I tell that little funny story because as I'm thinking about where we're at right now, it's like this mountain to overcome to win the county back. But here's the thing. We just got to work at it. We just got to not give up. And that's kind of what I learned. You just don't give up. So if we go back to, the real reason why I'm here, as far as, being a precinct chair, that was kind of my makeup. I'm not going to quit this thing. I'm going to figure this out. So what did I have? I had the OHPS status, so I started block walking. I had sheets of paper. I just started knocking on doors. And I met a few people, and sure enough, they were willing and able, and they wanted to go ahead and volunteer and help me. And, so basically a couple hours a week, I'd get out there and hit the streets. And, eventually these people, we were able to kind of grow it. And so I started reaching out to the other precinct chairs. I said, hey, let's start getting together. I want to kind of create a community out here in Katy. So we started. I don't have pictures from the original meeting on my back porch when there were just 3 of us, but some of these are early. Some of the early ones we have out there, and we bounced around different locations, and we've grown it. At the end of the day, it's just we just stuck with it, and so it's about creating relationships and working with each other and working as a team. So I'm very proud of what we've accomplished as a group. And so why is that important now? Well, we've got a mountain to climb right now. So what are we going to do? Just real quick, I guess on the meetups, again, and this is not the whole purpose, but over time as we grew the groups, different things change. I'm bringing speakers. At the beginning, it was more just us talking. And then as we were bringing speakers, so the complexion of the meetings changed. And I guess how that applies to us right now is, things are going to be thrown at you, things are going to change, and you just kind of work with the things as they change. So, but right now, basically it's down to block walking, more block walking. That's how we developed what we did out in Katy, and I think the block walking is what we need to use right now, just as Cindy was talking earlier. And at the end of the day, all the doors that we can knock, if we all just make that small contribution, that's what we need to do. So what do we need to do? We need to recruit others to help us block walk. So I know there's organized block walks that are going on that the county are putting on. Yes, I've been doing some work with Alex out there leading instructions from block walks. Christina we're very fortunate to have him out there. We'll be using the Katy office. But at the end of the day, it's knocking on doors. So up here I've got use the Advantage app via HCRP. I've done that a lot. I use the HCRP app quite a bit. And we've hit so many doors in our precinct. I've been knocking on doors for other precinct chairs out in Katy. We've been doing the exact same thing. So yes, those are good things. Get out there, use the HCRP Chromebooks. So yes, we've been doing some block walking using those books. But again, it's just getting out there and hitting doors. I mean, we just gotta get out there and hit doors. And, you know, I've got the OHBS data. There's some people that are uncomfortable using the app. Fine. Just get out there and use whatever data you have to just hit your precinct. So it's, you know, collecting the data, that's obviously very, very important. It's important to the county, it's important to the candidates. But it's getting out there in front of the voters and getting in front of these, getting out on these doorsteps. So what are some good goals? You know, so right now, I mean, I'm trying to block a couple nights a week, you know, so, or a couple times a week. You know, usually I do like a midweek, go out for a couple hours. We've been doing the structured block walks on Saturday mornings out of Katy. We'll continue that. We've done the last couple of weekends. We've got 3 more weekends coming up. I know that Jack Cagle's going to be running some block walks out of the Katy office this weekend as well. The more the merrier. Somebody said to me, well, you know, is that going to be, no. I mean, bring them all. I mean, let's all get in there. Let's all work. Because to me, I tell you, here's the thing. I'm in this for everybody. I'm in this for everybody. You know, Alex's team contacted me about, you know, working these block walks for her, and I said, sure, that's fine. I'll spread myself there and I'll work a little bit. But you know, all of these candidates. I mean, we have so many wonderful candidates. The judges, I've been blessed because at our Katy meetups, I've had the chance for these judges to come talk to us. And I tell you, these are some wonderful people. They really are. And these candidates are wonderful. And the amount of time that they're investing, I feel obligated to put a little bit of time in block walking. And so I would encourage everybody to do that. And the other thing, sometimes, you know, people feel like, you know, I gotta block 3 hours to go block walk. You don't. You know, you can go out there for half an hour, go out there for an hour, go knock on 5 doors, 10 doors, whatever it is. You know, all those little bits add up. And so that's what we need to do. So don't feel obligated, well, if I can't go out for 3 hours, I guess I'm not gonna block walk. No, just go out and do what you can. And if everyone just does a little bit, we're gonna accomplish a lot. And it, you know, so I go back to the baseball thing. I mean, you know, I coached so many games we were behind, and you know, you just never give up. You never give up. That's what you do. Sorry about that. But anyway, so that's what I'm saying. Just I would encourage everyone to get involved, get involved, get involved. And the last thing is just, you know, get a game plan, stay at it. Don't be reluctant. Get out there, take action, stay positive. I'm all about staying positive because if you're being positive, everybody around you is going to see that. So I like that. And the last thing is, I always like to tell people, if somebody tells you you're doing it wrong, ignore them. I'm telling you. I mean, because some people will sit there and say, well, you know, okay, let's just all get out there and we'll work. And don't let people tell you have to do it this way, because that's not how it works. Sorry.
Can I say something real
Yes,
quick?
ma'am.
This goes along with you. Just FYI, is when I'm driving around and I see a business that might have one Republican sign out front, in front of their business, I keep signs in the back of my car. About time, I stop at that business and I ask them if I can put other signs out there for other candidates. And I also do that with homeowners, if I just see one sign out there. By the time, I'll go knock on their door. I always keep a button in my car so they'll know that I'm with the Harris County Republican Party. And I'll knock on their door and ask them. And I have been able to put signs out for other candidates when I see that a Republican lives there.
Great idea.
Just FYI, it's another way to get signs out there, people. It works.
You know, you can do all the organizing you want to on paper, but you have to implement. It takes action. Think about, we've got 500 precinct chairs, you know, more or less in the county. What if every one of those precinct chairs was doing the kind of job that James Clayton was doing? Can you imagine? There wouldn't be a problem.
Right.
You had the red
For
wave
sure.
going.
Right.
So let me tell you a little bit about upcoming meetings. This is being recorded. You get a copy of this. So we publish every Monday morning a list of all of the meetings that we know going on. And there's 3 sheets of these right here. So you get to see all of those. We're down to the deadline. October 11th, last day to vote, and the 24th is gonna be the first day of early voting, so let's get ready for them. There's still time to get your training done for poll watching, if you haven't been through that yet. Alan Vera is conducting those sessions, doing an outstanding job, always had done, and in addition to that, Sonia Aston is teaching the election law training. Every Republican should take both of those trainings. Every precinct chair, for sure. Register at that link right there. Put it on your calendar. If you got your cell phone out, you can just put in tinyurl.com to MSYMP46, and you're there. Register to meet this team. Great, we have some speakers, and we'll look forward to, one more thing. I always tell people about mass texting because most people don't answer the phone. Only 1 out of 17 emails gets read, and so you have to have a way to reach them. And in texting, we find out that 90% of the people will actually read those texts, so that's a good method to use there. I want to thank each and every one of you, Newell, for being here. That's me signing off. Push the button, y'all. Thank you all.